siblings get to arguing, somebody would just say, peace. Everybody would shut up. Because they believed in having peace in that house. She fosters peace in her home, and she is content with her blessings. She speaks with wisdom and kindness. She takes care of her household and is not idle. Now, some people, bless their heart, they don't have wisdom, or common sense is not common. And sometimes, things can be said or done. Children stand up till like 11, 12 o'clock at night, and they got school the next day. Just running around. She doesn't teach them how to clean. She doesn't teach them how to take care of themselves. Some don't even know how to teach their children how to clean hygienically. So all of these things, when she says something, is wisdom. When her children come up and ask her questions, her answers are not going to be foolish. She's going to speak with wisdom and kindness. Because let me tell you about these little kids. They can get on your ever-loving nerves. Keep asking questions over and over and over. I had one of my nephews ask me once, when astronauts go to the moon, do they take pieces of it off? And what do you mean? Because some days the moon is like real big, and then other days it's real small, and other days it's real tiny, looking like that. So, I didn't laugh in his face. I laughed later, but, I explained, well, it's because of the way the sun reflects on the moon. But, they'll do that. They're not asking a question, but why? But why? But why? But why? But why? So you have to have wisdom and kindness. I don't remember telling my kids to shut up when they were little. But I thank God, because that was like a bad word in our house. That was a curse word. So, going on. Proverbs 31 and 30. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. Favor is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. That devotion to God, I feel that's the most important one. You can have these other characteristics. You can be considerate of others, and you can be loyal to your husband. But if you don't have that devotion to God, that fear of God, that respect, that knowing when things happen, when you got troubles, by faith, it will be handled. Because that is what you're instilling in your children as well. You're not saying, oh, no, I'm going to get this. This is so hard. No, just pray the Lord. He'll help us. That's why we're his children. He'll take care of us. She's known for her faith and obedience to God's word and her reverence to him. Now, there are several examples of various women in the Bible who, showed that they were virtuous in different ways. One was Esther. Esther showed her unwavering faith and wisdom and good judgment when approaching the king in behalf of her people when her life was at stake. And we've heard this verse many, many times. This is Esther, the 4th chapter and the 16th verse. Go, gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, day or night. I also and my maidens will fast likewise. And so I will go in unto the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish. Now, the Jews were being threatened. They were supposed to be getting killed. And she had become the queen. We're not getting into that story. You can read it. It's in Esther. But she had become the queen. And they have the law that you can't go to the king unless he sends for you. And if you go, unless he sets out his scepter, that's the only way he's saying, come on. So she hadn't been called for, she said, a month. And, they saw all these streets, they were putting up signs, and all the Jews were going to be killed, and this, that, and the other. And Mordecai was like, this is why you here. Go to the king and tell him that we're about to die. And at first she's like, I can't go till he called me, because I could die. And he said, well, you're going to die either way. You're either going to die in there or you're going to die out here because you're a Jew. Don't forget who you are. And so she went on and she did that. And when she went to the king, and he extended his scepter and allowed her to come in. So she showed unwavering faith, wisdom, and good judgment when she approached the king. She just didn't go in there and saying, you know what, let me tell you something. This man trying to do this, this, and that. And I know, see, I'm a Jew, and I know you don't. She didn't go in like that. She went in with wisdom. Let me do a banquet and invite the very man who's trying to kill me. And we're going to do this. And he said, well, what you want? He's feeling good. He got good food. What you want? What you want? I'll give it to half the kingdom. I want to have another banquet tomorrow, and I would like to have it with him and you. And so he said, well, okay. So he did it again. The guys all happy going home. The queen had me do a special banquet and this and that. But then he saw Mordecai, and Mordecai didn't do his head. And he was like, oh, I'll be glad when I can kill that Jew because I'm getting tired of him. He's just not being respectful at all. But then when he came back the last time, and then she asked, something, what are you doing? Somebody's attacking me. And this and that. He said, who's doing it? Him right there. He said that all of us going to die. And then he took care of him. So she showed wisdom, unwavering faith. And she knew, even though she was afraid about what was going to happen, she still stepped out on faith. And that's, if I perish, I perish. And God's like, I got you, sis. You don't have to worry about it. And Ruth, the 2nd chapter and the 2nd verse. I'm probably not going to read all of these. You can read them. But we've been talking about Ruth for a minute. So there you go. Those who took notes or look at the notes, because he was talking about Ruth was loyal to Naomi. When her husband died and she could go back to be with her people, but she said, no, your people going to be my people. My God's going to be your God. I'm going with you. And she stayed. She was loyal to her. And she also had unwavering faith because we're here and, we got to eat. Well, I'm going to go and do this. She had faith to believe that there was going to be some food when she went out to pick up various grains and stuff like that. And so also, she was a hard worker. She didn't just pick up a little bit and then sit down or talk to the other people who were working. She was always working and picking up grain and going on. And then she caught Boaz's eye. Y'all can read that yourself. But that exemplified that unwavering faith and her willingness to work hard. Those were virtues of a virtuous woman. And then there's Hannah. 1 Samuel 1, 10 through 12. Hannah's obedience to God, her dedication to her family, and her persistence in prayer demonstrated her virtuous character. She wanted a son. She wanted a child. But everybody else seemed like they were getting pregnant except her. And she was so hurt. And her husband was like, aren't I enough for you? No. She wanted a son. And so she started praying and fasting, and she went to the temple, and she was praying, and she was going so much that the priest thought she was drunk. And he said, how dare you come in here doing like that? So I'm praying for my Lord, I want a son. And then he said, well, you will have one. And not only did that, she dedicated him and gave him back to God. She honored that because she said, Lord, if you give me a son, I will give him back to you. And she did. As a mom, it's hard to give away a child. It's hard when you lose a child. I can't imagine giving a child away. Not coming back home anymore, not being around mom anymore, just there for God's use. So she showed her obedience to God and her dedication to her family and her persistence in prayer demonstrated her virtuous character. Then there's Mark. And a lot of times, Martha, I laugh about Martha because at the time when she was working and doing this, and then the other person was sitting at Jesus' feet, and she got a little attitude. But Luke, the 10th chapter, 38 through 42, talks about Martha's diligence and hospitality in serving others. Though she was a woman of great faith, it also reflects her as a virtuous woman. And also, Even though she was kind of chastised by Jesus, because she ain't helping. I'm over here doing all the work. That sounded like the Fondren household a lot when we were coming up. But he said, well, she chose the better thing. She told to listen to the word. So even though she was hospitable and she was doing all of those things right, you can't forget who you're doing them for. Last but not least, the Shunammite woman. 2 Kings 4:8-37. Have at it. I'm not reading that today. But this woman, when Elisha came through, her hospitality, she took care of him. She gave him food. She made sure he had something to drink. She was very hospitable. And not just for him, she was hospitable in her community. So if somebody needed something, she would help. And then he was still, whenever he would come through town, she made him a little room so he could lay down and have a place to sleep and rest, before he went on his way. And so she went on, and she didn't ask for anything. She didn't ask for one thing. And then finally, at one point, Elijah said, what is it that you want? And she said, you know what? I desire a son. I really would like a son. Because, sons they were up there in value. So she really wanted one. So he said, you're going to have one by this time next year. And so he left. She did. She had the baby. And she was so happy. Had the baby for a few years until he wasn't a baby. He was a young man. And then they were out working. And all of a sudden he said, my head, my head. And then he fell down. And she held him until he passed away. And she was like, I'm sure she was crying. But she remembered Elisha said that I was going to have a son. And she got up and she carried him and she put him on the bed, on Elisha's bed. And she got out and she went with the servant and she booked it on those donkeys. She said, you push it hard, you run until I tell you to stop. And they got there and Elisha was like, what's going on? Oh, how you doing, Sister Shunammite? I hadn't seen you. But she said, did you not tell me? No. He said, how are you? How are things? And she said, all is well. All is well.